Hi, my name is Elle. I'm a cross-stitch artist and designer here on TikTok, and today I'm going to be answering Nyad's question, do you stick to a certain color palette across the patterns so that they're cohesive? So the short answer to this is no. The longer answer to this is kind of, but also no. So the reason I do not have a limited color palette for these patterns is that my first and foremost, my goal is to make these patterns as close to the original sprites as I possibly can. Now, I will say I am usually working off of Gen 4 or 5 sprites, typically Gen 5, sometimes Gen 4. I think every once in a while I've worked off of a Gen 3 sprite, but nothing before that because Gen 2 had a very limited color palette and Gen 1 is black and white. So most of the time when I'm talking about like what sprites I'm working off of, it's usually Gen 5 sprites that I'm looking at. So the other problem that comes into play when we're talking about working with a smaller color palette or something like that so that they're more cohesive is the fact that there are like 1,000 Pokemon now. That's a lot. That's a lot to try and narrow down to a smaller color palette. So what I've done instead is I've said, okay, I am only going to work with DMC Floss. That is the brand that I am most familiar with. That's the brand that I'm most comfortable with. And that is the brand that I have seen personally be very, very consistent across the board with their coloring and things like that. If you buy from different lots, they don't even put dye lot numbers on their skeins of floss because that's how consistent they are. They've been in business for like 200 years or something like that. Like, it's ridiculous. They're very good at what they do. So this is where the kind of answer comes into play. Because I'm only using DMC Floss, they make about 500 colors. So I do not use any of the Etoile floss. I do not use any of the metallics. I just keep it to their standard colors. So that does limit my color palette to roughly 500 colors, which sounds like a lot. It genuinely sounds like a lot, but I promise you when I am trying to find the exact right shade or even like a close shade to match some of these colors, I actually have a really hard time doing that. So back to my second no answer is I employ color blending in a lot of my palettes. And what that means is I'm taking two colors and we're going to blend them together to make a color that's in between those colors to get it closer to what it really should be to match the original sprite as best as possible. So that does open up a lot more color variations rather than just having 500 strict ones, which again, 500 sounds like a lot. I promise you, it's actually a very small amount. Like, I want you to go take a look at a DMC floss chart, and I want you to look specifically at the shades of purple that they offer. There are not very many shades of purple, and then I want you to think about how many purple Pokemon there are, and know that for every Pokemon that has purple in it, I'm typically using 3 to 6 shades of purple in that one pattern. So to find that many shades that are either in the same color family or in closely related color families, and I'm trying to color match as close as I can, I'm gonna have to do some fun things like color blending in order to get the best result. That being said, I am very good at what I do. I did photography for many years before this. I have a really good eye for color and for color matching and for the color blending portions of what I do and things like that. And I've even had some people be like, oh, this seems like a really odd color for you to have chosen for this color palette. And I'm like, trust the process. And that has actually become a mantra here on my channel, is trust the process. Because once they actually do the stitching and they finish the entire thing, they see that it really does come together. Like I said, I am good at what I do. So with that said, I've actually had nothing but really, really positive things that people have said about the colors that I've chosen and about the process that I go about it. Like I said, some people during the process, during the stitching, they're like, is this going to be okay? And I always remind them, trust the process. It's going to be okay, I promise. Trust the process. So do I stick to a certain color palette? No, kind of, but also no. But I do think that the end result makes it worth it. I hope that helps, and as always, happy stitching.